The yin-yang rule, as I call it, and it's kind of a coinage of my own, is absolutely fundamental to the way I read tarot cards. Now, yin and yang are opposites, but there's this concept that when one is at its maximum, it contains the seeds of the other. So when you're at maximum yin, that moment contains the seeds of yang and vice versa. So yin becomes yang. Now this relates to how I read reversals in tarot reading, and it's extremely important. I use it all the time. I haven't really come clean about it yet because I didn't want to confuse the people who watch my videos, but I've decided to tell you about it. It'll be quite a short video, and then you can decide for yourself whether you want to use this rule. I think it'll very much depend on how you use reversals and how you read reversals, or whether you read reversals at all. Before I tell you what the yin-yang rule is and how it works, I just want to tell you a quick anecdote about the lovely woman who was my main tarot inspiration, I suppose. So you can skip this bit if you want, it'll be about 2 minutes. For about 10 years I lived in Brighton, and there was a fantastic tarot reader there. Tarot reader, psychic healer. I won't name her by name, she knows who she is. She retired from tarot and went into another line of work. But she was astonishingly good at reading cards. She was very psychic. She was the sort of person who could tell you things about your life that you thought you knew. I mean, details. For example, I was a screenwriter at the time, and I was just at that point where I was discussing with my agent the possibility of working with a very important Hollywood director who I did actually work with, and it was sort of the high point of my career. And I knew this guy as John, and I won't boast about which one it was. It was a John. And I just heard that this deal was brewing. It was in the very early stages. And the lovely tarot reader said, "Oh yes, I see that you're going to be working with someone very important. His name is Jonathan." And I said, "Wow, that's really amazing that you should pick that up. Actually, he's called John, but that's really close." And she said, "Oh, I think it's Jonathan, but you know, whatever." And then I later found out that I was wrong. It was Jon, John, short for Jonathan, not John. So in other words, she knew more about the details of the people that I had in my life than I did. An amazing psychic, an amazing tarot reader. This lovely woman had a lovely attitude towards reversals. If there was like a reverse card on the table, she would talk about it and sort of push it around the table a bit. And sometimes she would just turn it round and say, well, what we want is we want that card to be upright, don't we? We want the energy to be flowing a bit better. So let's just turn it round. And I think I was very impressed by that. And I think that underlies my attitude to reversals. I don't read traditional reversal meanings. I just see them as the cards they are, you know, the 78 cards in the deck. And they're reversed, and that kind of blocks the energy a bit, or it means you should be wary of it or avoid it or whatever, however you want to read that. But, you know, bear in mind that it just takes a little tweak and you can turn it round, can't you? Well, anyway, take that with a pinch of salt. I will now tell you about the lovely yin-yang rule. So here's the yin-yang rule. It's very simple. If the majority of the cards in your spread come down reversed, then reverse the whole spread. Okay, 2 out of 3 reversed. You quickly do that. And then read. I'm talking about the majority. So if you have 6 out of 12 reversed, that's not the majority. You leave it as it is. Now, it's very important to have certain provisos, certain rules. I'll just tell you what they are. They prevent you from going mad. Now, firstly, you need to be clear that there are certain spreads for which the yin-yang rule will not apply. For example, what if you have a very simple spread for answering yes/no questions? I know it's very basic, but sometimes you might be driven to use such a simple spread. For example, am I going to go to the yoga class? Something not very in-depth. And in my case, I do. I have a 3-card spread. And if the majority are upright, the answer is yes. If the majority are reversed, the answer is no. So I can get a no, I can get a yes, but I can also get a strong yes, or a strong no. I quite like this spread without reading too much into it. Now, if you're going to have the yin-yang rule as part of your practice, just make sure that you've established in your own mind that this does not apply to yes-no spreads. That's fairly obvious, but there's just one other thing you need to bear in mind. Now, it could be that you use spreads for which the number of cards is not quite defined at the beginning. Let me give you an example. I have the What's My Problem spread, and it is issue and advice from the tarot. Some people call that issue and resource. So in this case, well, my problem today, or my issue, is that I'm looking for balance. I'm looking for temperance. My advice, my resource in this case would be, okay, acknowledge that I'm at a low point and I'm not going to find balance today. Now, that's the basic spread, but I also have the option, once I've looked at those two cards, if that answer is clear, I could leave it at that. If it's not quite clear enough, I could add a second card, avoid the Queen of Battens, or I could add a third card, avoid struggle. That's how I would read that. So in other words, it's not clear until I've actually finished what I'm doing. It's not clear when the yin-yang rule would have kicked in. So in this case, I have a very particular way of using the yin-yang rule. What I say is, in this spread, the yin-yang rule applies to the first two cards. So in other words, the first two cards are the spread, and the second and or third cards are the illuminating cards. And that's a very important distinction. So let's try it again. Okay, that's not true that the majority are reversed. There is no majority, so the yin-yang rule does not come into play. I can, if I want, have further cards. Look, I've now got 3 reversed, but the yin-yang rule does not apply to those 2 cards because they are officially illuminating cards. But look, here we have the first 2 and they are both reversed. So I swiftly turn them round before I've started to read them, look at them and decide whether I want to go on. Okay, it's as simple as that. That was the yin-yang rule. Use it if you want. I'm Robert Farrar, this is Tea and Tara, and I'll see you next week. Bye. And if you're wondering what my ornaments were today, well, here's a Charles and Diana. I think it's a little vase. You'd put maybe one little bloom in there. And I found it in a junk shop. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the things that you find in junk shops, it's absolutely ravishing. And the other object was a little watch, Victorian style. I mean, it's repro. A little watch that you would wear on a chain around your neck. It would be like that. It would be upside down. You'd be a nurse or something, and then you'd lift it and turn it towards your face. And I just popped these on the table at random. So if I had to read that, I would say, does time heal the Diana story? I suppose then I would have to pull out another random treasure card from my treasure drawer to complete the reading. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Maybe we have a lot of cleansing to do before that wound is resolved.